Welcome to the first episode, hopefully not the last, of Survival Wheels. And I love my Jeep, and I like working on my Jeep. But one of the things that I don't like is differential fluid. That lube is nasty, it gets everywhere, and it's difficult to work on. However, if you've been out four-wheeling, you know that water crossings are inevitable. You're driving along, you don't think a puddle is deep, all of a sudden, boom, you're up over your axles in sloppy mud, which gets into your differential if your vents aren't taken care of. So I had to check my differential, and I was thinking it would be nice if it had a drain plug. I've seen differentials with drain plugs, and you'd think Jeep would have said, you know, we go off-roading, we get our vehicles wet, muddy, dirty. It would make sense to put a drain hole in the differential. But for some reason they didn't. So I thought, what the heck? I decided to put a drain hole in my differential so that if I wanted to check see if there was water in the fluid, I could just drain it and easily put in more fluid, just like an engine or a transmission. So, here's the first episode. Take a look, and in the end, let me know what I did well and where I can improve. So here is making a drain plug for my front differential. The first part of the project was to install a drain plug at the bottom of the differential cover. Although the cover was fairly thick, I wanted there to be more material for the bolt threads, so I welded a small steel plate to the bottom, then drilled and tapped the hole. Next, the vent tube at the top of the differential had fallen out. So to make it more permanent and watertight, I tapped that hole as well so I could screw in a nipple for a better fit. And now, instead of using the filler hole, I can also use a hose from the top and fill it to avoid making my typical lube-covered mess. I found a brass fitting in my toolbox. Although it was a little shorter than I would have liked, it should still work out just fine. I found the corresponding tap with the correct diameter and threads. I just had to make sure to tap the hole correctly. I've ruined too many projects by not taking the time to get the correct angle. Now when done, I should be able to screw the fitting into the differential and use gasket maker for a watertight seal around the threads. Then I just need to run a hose to the top of the engine bay to ensure deep water crossing does not contaminate my differential lube. At first, I tried to work the tap from the top, but I could not get the correct angle. However, I noticed that I could easily see how the tap was entering the vent hole from underneath the differential. Using a ratchet and a 1/4-inch socket, I could direct the tap into the hole correctly, making sure the tap was able to get an initial clean, straight bite. I would apply pressure downward and give a few turns, allowing the tap to take a bite and cut into the hole. Then I would back it out and allow the debris and shavings to clear the hole. It's important to remember to thoroughly clean the threads and differential. All the metal shavings must be completely cleaned from the gears and the housing. A view from the top shows the threads were cut cleanly into the vent tube hole and the fitting screwed in easily and seat tightly once screwed in all the way. Once it is cleaned one more time, gasket sealer will be applied to the threads and the base of the fitting. This should create a water and debris proof fitting. I plan to use some spare fuel hose, run it to the top of the engine bay, and install a small filter at the end of the vent tube. Next, I turned my attention to the welding. At first the welder was not working well, but I remembered the thinner extension cord supplied insufficient power to the welder. This is something to consider if your welder is not working as well as you think it should. I switched to the proper cord and ran a few beads along the side of the steel. Now my welding skills are not the best, but I can usually get the job done. The beads along the sides turned out okay. They still need a little work, but they were a lot better than the top. This top part was welded with the wrong extension cord. I will clean it up and re-weld these parts as well as the bottom sections. After a few passes and some cleaning up, I should have an ugly but strong weld. The point of this project was to make modifications with simple tools that most people would have. I thought about trying to freehand the drilling, but this next step is too important to mess up. So I used a few vices and secured the cover to my drill press. I made the first pass with a smaller bit to create a pilot hole. Then I stepped up to the correct size bit. Applying slow, steady pressure, it took only a few moments to drill the final hole. I found that using a smaller drill bit for a pilot hole helps things go much straighter and faster. In addition, applying some type of lube, in this case PB Blaster, helps to keep the drill bit sharper in the long run. To ensure the tap went in straight and I could apply even pressure, I secured it into the drill press. This way, I can make sure it follows the same path as the drill bit, and I can use the handle of the feed lever to apply continuous downward pressure. I turned the chuck by hand steadily until the tap was able to take a decent bite. It only took a few turns to set the tap. If I would have been thinking, I could have used the chuck key to get more force for a few more turns, but it took a decent bite anyway. Using the tap handle, I completed the threads. Every turn, I would stop and back it out. It's important to back out the tap to allow metal shavings and debris to clear the newly cut threads. There, the new threads were cut and the new bolt for the drain holes screwed in easily. Now, let's go put it back on the Jeep. After cleaning the threads, the differential, and the cover, it was reinstalled using black oil-resistant silicone gas maker. The new drain plug also received generous amounts as well. Then, using a section of clear hose so I could see the progress, I filled the differential with 80W90 gear oil. Normally, I make a mess filling it through the filler hole, especially with a 1-quart lube bottle. This time, however, attaching the filler hose to the vent tube made it much easier. Now for the last part. I found a few feet of fuel hose and secured it to the vent nipple with a hose clamp. I will run the hose to the top of the engine bay and secure it along the side of the radiator mount so that it will not fall into the fan. The last step will be to put a small gas filter on the end to keep dust and dirt out of the front differential. So how'd we do? Now, the initial video was made 3 to 4 months ago, and so far there hasn't been any leaking from the differential, from the welding, or the bolt. Fairly successful. One of my favorite things about the project is now I can fill my differential from the vent hole in the top and avoid that big hole in the middle where I always made a mess. And trust me, if there's something I know how to do, it's make a mess. Now, if you like this idea and you decide to improve upon it and do it, please post it. We could always make something better. Trust me, if I did it, someone can do a whole lot better job than I did. So please post it so I can learn how to do a better job as well. In the comments below, talk about the video. This is my first YouTube video. How did I do? Did I go too fast? Did I go too slow? Do I need more information? Do I need less information? Do I move my head too much? It's almost like watching a bobblehead. And I found out that I breathe pretty heavy. Before every sentence, it sounds like there's an asthmatic in the room. And then I talk. And then I talk. I found that to be fairly annoying. I'll see if I can figure out how to fix that. In any case, this is Survival Wheels signing off, saying, who's the best teacher? Well, by gosh, you are. You think it, research it, plan it, and do it. Don't let anyone tell you can't do something, especially yourself. This is Survival Wheels. See you next time.